The Burning Legion has returned.
Gentlemen, delighted to have you both here because you are both experts. You are Deus experts, shall we say.
Playing the dude sex all week.
You've been playing a lot of dude sex?
Yeah.
Day of sex. Mankind Divided is out. Officially today, I guess. GameSpot's review is up. Ed Tran gave it
8
out of 10. Thank you, Jean-Luc. Saved my ass. So I'm a huge Deus Ex fan. I wasn't super into Human Revolution. I didn't really get into the swing of it. Yeah. I love the old Warren Spector one. And I like Deus Ex 2 as well, actually. But for whatever reason, I was looking forward to Mankind Divided because I feel like I missed the boat in the first one, and it wasn't necessarily the game's fault. I was probably playing something else or something.
Sure.
So I guess to you, first of all, Jean-Luc, what have you made of it? What's your history with the franchise? You a fan of the old games?
Yeah, I played the original. Huge fan of that. I like this sort of immersive sim style games, Thief and System Shock and Dishonored, kind of, carrying that legacy. I enjoyed Human Revolution a lot. I never played Invisible War.
Right.
I didn't care about that one at all. That was wasn't that only on the Xbox?
No, PC as well.
PC,
yeah.
really? Whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't play it.
It kind of felt a little bit ported. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah, no. So I played Human Revolution, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. It didn't fully grab me at the time. I think because I played on the console,
right.
And I remember being really frustrated about the boss battles and. Because I played a non-lethal stealth run, and then that's sort of the big thing people talk about that game. You come up on it, and it's here's these guys, now you have to fight them.
Yeah.
And you're oh,
there was no way to kill the bosses stealth-wise.
So they fixed that in this one by just not having boss battles.
Great. That'll do
They
it.
just completely took them out.
Yeah, which I'm sure is probably fine.
I think
right?
they had
It's
a second
fine.
edition of Human Revolution where they actually did add more to the boss battles.
They
Yes.
did patch stuff, a bunch of things in actually to rectify that. But apart from that sort of stuff, how does the game play? Does it feel? I mean, it's been a long time. It's been August 2011 was when Human Revolution came out, so
Yeah.
it's been 5 years. Does it feel like it's been 5 years?
It does, and it was so. At the beginning of the game, it has a 12-minute recap.
Right.
It just is hey, do you want to watch this 12-minute recap, which is just Adam Jensen reading the Wikipedia entry for Human Revolution over footage, which was good because I don't remember anything that happened in that last game. Something about the Illuminati.
Well, it seemed like the story in that one was
Ogs.
even not necessarily the biggest attachment, right, Aaron?
It was kind of augments are bad.
Right.
Maybe some people don't like augments. We hate progress. It was one of those games where it was always a game that was less about that and more about freedom of movement in the environment and solving puzzles in a way that you thought you had outsmarted the game, only to find out that the game had expected you to do that or given you the option to do that. That's kind of what was unique about that game. And also, it's one of the only games you can put your gun away, which oddly enough it's kind of cool.
So Mankind Divided then, how does it play similarly to that? Does it reinvent the wheel? What are we talking about
So
here?
far, Mankind Divided feels exactly like they just turned the page in the next chapter of the same book. I mean, there's, they polished up the animations and they did add some new abilities, but you're still spending most of your skill points initially on the stuff that you already know is you need, like hacking, jumping, breathing toxic gas. So, and then there's early on, this is not really a spoiler, you have to lock out some abilities, so they make you choose which ones you want before you've really had a chance to play with all of them.
Min-max pretty early. All right.
Yeah.
So what about the levels themselves then? Let's get into how this game actually plays or feels when you're playing it. Is it the same sort of thing, Jean-Luc, where you're very much okay, I can go in here all guns blazing, or maybe I can hack this one door and get something different? Or
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, typically you'll go to an area and then it's oh, there's a guard there, he won't let me in, and then you look around and you're all right, I could jump up over that wall and get around that way. You can go through a vent, you can hack, that's kind of the thing, is it's all the options that were there in the last game are still there and still kind of the same.
Right.
And so I feel like a problem that most people run into with these games is you get into a rhythm where you're oh, I like the hacking, so you always just hack, or you always use the vent, you always use the same 3 augs, and
there's always a vent.
Yeah, there's always a vent.
Yeah.
So you kind of just do the same thing, and then you get into this rhythm. And so it's less about, it's sort of you get to a new room and you're immediately all right, where's the vent? There's the vent.
Right.
Gonna go in that vent. And
so you're not really problem solving, you're just kind of I don't know, you're doing what's comfortable to you, I guess.
That
Yeah,
depends how
pretty
you
much.
play it. Because
Right.
after finding that predictable rhythm for like a couple of levels, I decided to just start knocking out anybody who sassed me.
Okay.
And the game got really interesting all of a sudden.
Really?
So
Why? Because you were just forced to be in combat scenarios then, or
I think you can play the game kind of combat wise.
Right.
It is everything's there in the game for you to do it, and the game oftentimes doesn't expect you to do it. So some hilarity can ensue, like you knocking a guard out, running into a closet, closing the door, and then knocking the next 5 guys out who open the closet door, and ending up with a guard dog pile.
outside, and they continue, but they're still opening the good door. Like they
Yeah.
haven't figured it out. Okay.
But it's interesting because I think you can also knock out characters who give you side quests.
Right.
So that's the punishment for going the
just
violent
knocking
route.
at anyone.
Yeah.
It looks, from what I've seen, and I haven't seen it running in person or anything yet. I was interested in all the preview stuff we were doing the weeks prior to its launch. The world itself looked pretty interesting, like detail levels, more variety than there was in Human Revolution in terms of that. Like, what did you think of that, Aaron?
So far, it's mostly been city streets, and I think John Luke went all the way to the end. Some sewer sections that had some side quests, which were interesting. I don't know, like Deus Ex has always been a game where even though you have a lot of options, I always still feel like I'm in a corridor.
Right, yeah.
Like it doesn't have that Dishonored feel where you're kind of seeing how far to the side of the map you can get.
Which I felt in Deus Ex 1 and 2 you were doing a lot of. Like that's
Yeah.
what that game felt like, which is not from what I had played of. I played like a little bit of Human Revolution, or of Human Evolution, and that's what it felt like. It felt like the blinders were on a little bit. Is this kind of the same with this one?
Yeah, definitely when you get into the missions, it is more of a straight path. For me, the stuff I really like is sort of the hub world
Right,
area.
How well realized is that stuff?
It's pretty good. So you're walking a lot of detail, a lot of characters. I would find myself like, you see random people and they're having a conversation that you can just overhear. And it took a while before I felt like I started to hear repeat stuff.
Okay,
so
cool.
they recorded a lot of dialogue. There were a lot of characters that I could engage in like a full conversation with. And it didn't lead to a side quest. It didn't do anything. It was just there to build the world. And that was cool. Like
Cool.
if you like that kind of stuff, if you just like poking around and talking to people and reading,
Creeping.
creeping on
Yeah,
people,
digital
reading
creeping.
their stuff. It's pretty good at that.
It's weird. It sounds like the biggest criticisms that you guys have of it is that it's very similar to Human Revolution.
Totally.
So as somebody who didn't really play a lot of Human Revolution, I feel like this is great.
It could be a great game.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, if you don't have that, if you didn't play it, you'll probably be like, this is awesome. Like, first time experiencing this.
Yeah.
But for me, as someone who really liked Human Revolution, but, it's been 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of hoping that it would do a little bit more to advance, just like mechanically and stuff like that, and it kind of doesn't.
So,
It feels more the same.
Yeah, 5 years is a long time in any game series, especially for a first-time sequel, I guess, as well. So, yeah.
On a larger level, I'm kind of over games where you're just a kleptomaniac for the sake of kleptomania.
Right.
Um,
You spent a lot of time picking stuff up in this one?
I don't know what the next thing is. I mean, some genius game developer is probably going to have to come up with whatever the next thing is. But like, you run through this in Mass Effect and Deus Ex where you're playing a slightly moral character, depending on how you play them. And what you do most of the time is break into people's apartments and steal their medicine and their bullets. And like, it just doesn't really you're like this cat burglar. And it just doesn't really like add to the story. It doesn't really make sense for you to be doing this constantly.
Totally.
Like Adam Jensen, cat burglar,
I know what and I guess it's like, I'm sure the developers would argue, oh, you don't have to do it. But like, when that's one of the only things you can do outside of walking around, I guess that's probably a bit weird.
I mean, ammo management is always an issue in this game. So you're motivated to go poke through people's drawers.
Right.
And most of them have
I mean,
bullets.
and drug management.
Well, the drugs don't even, it's not even like, oh, I have this drug now, it does a specific thing. Most of the stuff you pick up just gives you crafting parts.
Oh,
which you
right.
can just use to like
It just
get-
turns to scrap.
Yeah, it just turns into scrap,
Okay.
right?
You're also like kind of a creeper on people's emails and
And
like-
listening to conversations, it sound like, as well.
There's a nurse. You get to this area where it's like a slum area, really bad. You talk to this nurse lady, and she just talks about like, here's how dire the situation is, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. Here, I'll give you some like, health packs and blah
Yeah.
blah blah. Next thing I do is I go up, I find her apartment, and I'm like, all right, let's see what's on her computer. Let's take this from her safe. And like, the game doesn't be like, you took that from her safe. I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, who cares? Like, no consequences at all.
That's amazing. Steal from the poor, give to the poor.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good shout. Thank you both so much for coming on and talking about Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Review up on GameSpot.com now, 8 out of 10. Yeah, final thoughts? You'd recommend it, but with the caveat that it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you liked Human Revolution and you're like, yeah, I could use another one of those. Absolutely. If you've never played it, I think, and you seem like this is the kind of game I want to play, I want to check out, I think it's absolutely worth checking out.
Excellent.
But if you were hoping for something just like a little bit more fresh, it doesn't really give you that, unfortunately.
Well, Jean-Luc, you've completed it. Aaron, you have played a bunch of it but haven't completed it yet. Do you think you're going to go back in and complete it, or?
I got sidetracked knocking out large swaths of people through the world.
Make your own fun.
Yeah. No, I always like griefing games like this and just seeing how far you can push it. And I think the combat run is typically pushing it for a Deus Ex game. So I'm going to see how far I can take it.
Excellent. All right. Murder some people. Yeah. Come back and tell us about it next time. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.